afternoon to our friends in Asia. A very warm welcome on behalf of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council to you and to our webinar, Strategies for Building a Resilient Supply Chain. My name is Michael Katzmark, Marketing Manager of HKTDC Hong Kong Trade Development Council Frankfurt office. Before we start now, please allow me to give you a brief introduction of our organization, our services and activities. The Hong Kong Trade Development Council, a statutory body which promotes and develops Hong Kong's external trade, has been facilitating SMEs to grasp business opportunities and open new markets through its global network via physical and digital platforms. With 50 offices worldwide and over 50 years experience in global trading and sourcing, the HKTDC uses this network to connect quality international buyers and suppliers via various physical fairs and digital platforms. HKTDC introduces Exhibitions Plus, a brand new exhibition model integrating online and offline trade show formats, extending face-to-face interactions from its world-class exhibitions in Hong Kong to an online smart business matching platform to help you connect business partners proactively. Click to Match, a smart business matching platform, boasts advanced technology and easy operation, providing users a variety of functions and features such as AI recommended leads, precise search appointment making, video conferencing, instant messaging and translation, as well as file sharing to ensure easy communication among buyers and exhibitors. With physical exhibitions, Click to Match, Intelligence Hub, and HKTDC.com sourcing, you can now experience a unique sourcing journey with Exhibitions Plus. HKTDC.com sourcing is Hong Kong's first large-scale business-to-business marketing platform introduced by HKTDC in the year of 2000. As a trusted online marketplace operated by a statutory organization, we connect buyers and suppliers around the world with our buyer-driven business matching expertise and professional customer support teams, helping you to expand your business with mainland China, Asia, and the world. So far, it has brought together more than 130,000 suppliers and 2 million buyers, facilitating 24 million business connections a year. The platform was revamped in October 2020 and gaining the traction of strong growth on the website visit and buyer inquiries since the launch. What's more, check out our blog website, News Bites, to catch up with the latest sourcing news and trends to facilitate your planning. Sourcing experts around the world are invited to contribute articles and speak for webinars regularly to check tips of sourcing in different aspects and industries. A little housekeeping now. If you want to raise questions to our speaker later on by using a mobile device, please touch the questions at the bottom and input your question. If using desktop, please click Questions on the right and input your question. Well, not so long ago, logistics was not really a hot issue for most companies. It was simply there, functioning and not worth talking about. Topics such as product development, marketing, or new markets received by far more attention. But as we all know, this has changed dramatically over the past months. Supply chain disruption is now the topic, having a severe impact on multinational trade. Supply chain resilience no longer implies merely the ability to manage risk. It now assumes that the ability to manage risk means being better positioned than competitors to deal with and even gain advantage from disruptions. We are honored having today a global supply chain expert with us who has spent most of his career transforming the supply chain and manufacturing across the world. He worked, among others, for Kraft Foods and Li & Fung, and is currently working for Coca-Cola CCI in Turkey, transforming logistics and supply chain operations for the Coca-Cola network across 11 countries. He's also the founder of Aqua Nomad, the sustainable brand water sports apparel made from upcycled sea plastic. We're now looking forward to welcoming Mr. Cem Yurdum, Global Supply Chain Expert of Coca-Cola CCI, and his presentation on strategies for building a resilient supply chain. Cem, the floor is yours.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I'm honored, first of all, to be in front of so many people. I know we had a pretty good amount of people that that signed up, and I'm seeing quite a number also like coming online. So very happy to be here. Very happy that HKTDC, an emerging platform for Hong Kong, Asia, and for the sourcing world globally, has also seen the importance of logistics and supply chain during these pretty much unprecedented times. So very happy to be here. I don't have a lot of time, and I did try to pack in quite a number of topics because it's hard to talk about what's going on, where we are, and what we should be doing in 20 minutes. So I have a lot of slides that people can then can hear me out today, and they can take with them later. I know HKTDC team will be sending the PDF versions of it later, so you can also go over it, and with anything that you may not have caught today, you can look at it. So I know everyone may be getting. We have a very wide. I know we have quite a wide range of people in our webinar. There's folks from sourcing side, there's folks from probably sales operations, logistics, freight forwarders. So I'll try to give a little nuggets of information, some insights from what I have been seeing. By no means I'm an expert on everything. It's very hard, as we are seeing nowadays. But I've spent a fair amount of time on different parts of supply chain, literally starting from the end user, or working my way all the way to the manufacturing and raw goods procurement. So I'll sort of give my view on what I have been seeing in the past few years and also back, and what I think may be going into the future. Quick blurb about myself. I've spent most of my career in textile and food supply chains. I have been fortunate enough to work for some of the largest consumer goods brands in the world. I did start my career in the USA in the more of the downstream supply chain, looking at the last mile delivery and then the warehousing and fulfillment. But I always wanted to be an all-around sort of supply chain person, and for that I had to understand manufacturing. So that sort of conquest took me to Asia. And I had been in Asia for about 8-9 years, working with different manufacturers, sourcing agents, sourcing organizations, and raw material goods providers. And I really like to look at not just one single, let's say, mode of failure in a supply chain, but I like to look at it from the whole. And my conquest to start from all the way from last mile delivery and then working my way over the years to manufacturing or raw goods. Maybe after 17 years, now I'm actually seeing that it might have been a good idea to do that, because where we are now, it's impossible to talk about just one, just only logistics or only sea freight, air freight, or only procurement. You really have to look at it from the whole. The game has changed. Like Michael said, logistics was a bit of a benign, wasn't really looked at. Consumer goods magically popping up in front of your door from Asia or from warehouses all around the US and Europe. But I think the pandemic and the wars and all of the stuff that we've been seeing in the last couple of years really showed that there's actually really intricate work that has been being done. So when I approach when I start working with a new company or a new organization or group of people, I really try to understand the different root causes across the whole value chain, not just supply chain, but the value chain, and how the different decisions along, from raw material goods to processing, manufacturing, and all the way to consumer shipments, how those different root causes play along and exacerbate, creating a bullwhip effect of different issues and problems down the line in the supply chain. So I maybe a quick disclaimer that I'm not going to be saying, use this port in China. This is the one that's not clogged up right now, or use that freight forwarder in the US or Europe. But I'm more going to kind of give a bit of a flavor of my version of end-to-end supply chain and what it is and where we are headed. So right now I am within the Coca-Cola system. It's a very massive system of more than 700,000 people working in their fulfillment area. So obviously we are in unprecedented times. I want to say pandemic and wars. Many of us probably didn't think that we would actually utter these words in our lifetimes, but we actually are living through it within the last 2 years. It's mind-boggling. It is affecting every industry. It's affecting so many people, security and things that unfathomable. Like we haven't. Yes, we are blindsided, but most of us never have really experienced it. We're seeing things that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago, obviously before e-commerce or before present day, logistics. So really going through this like very unprecedented and unstable times. And this all started happening while we were trying to figure out millennials, Gen Z, and even the rise of e-commerce, just when we were sort of saying, okay, the consumer behavior has changed, and now let's shift the way we work, the way we conduct business, the way we organize our supply chains. And just as we were doing that, we were hit by pandemic, we were hit by geopolitical issues, then we were hit by the current unfortunate war, not just one war, but many wars going on around the world that is affecting global supply chains. And I think all of these disruptions caught many supply chains and many organizations off guard, that we realized we weren't actually prepared as we thought we were. But it also, I joke about it a little bit, but it's actually true. It really made my profession, which is starting from logistics supply chain, really brought to the forefront. It became the talk of town. As you can see, these news articles, when you look at Wall Street Journal, who did just amazing expose, a 1-hour documentary on global supply chains. I advise everyone to watch it. People are talking in their homes when they don't get that toy from Amazon. Families are talking about global supply chains now in dinner tables. So that's a massive transformation even on a consumer scale. So we really have to sort of dig deep and ask some tough questions about our organizations and how we are conducting our business. I like to say supply chain and supply chain excellence is a delicate balance of your macro and micro constraints, things that really push you down, things that restrict you, things that create a bottleneck around your operation. Then you balance that with your capabilities. Your capabilities could be your processes, well thought out processes that everyone is aligned, the people that work for your organization, the people that actually make it happen, which is in the core of everything that we do. And then the systems. Are your systems capable? Are you still doing things manually in your warehouses? Are you still getting insights from emails? Are you investing in AI and machine learning? How are you having the system work for you? And I think as we were going through this massive transformation before, 3 years prior, and also sort of an accelerated version of it in the last 2 or 3 years with the pandemic and wars, we did start asking these questions. Do we have the right systems? If not, we need to invest ASAP. Do we have the right processes? Let's start from the ground up. Let's really revisit our entire value chain, supply chain processes. Do we have the right people? In the middle of all of this, now we're seeing a great resignation, and it's coming in waves. It's coming in different industries, and that is also limiting our capabilities, which is one of those downpouring constraints. And I think never in our, if supply chain professionals, we probably never thought that someone tweeting something would actually make a massive difference for our logistics or supply chain. And that's where we are right now. Everything is so interconnected, everything is so integrated that these are the reality. The global challenges, when we talk about the global challenges, yeah, it is easy to talk about pandemic, Shanghai ports clogged up, everyone's worried about that, but it's not just geographical. So I compiled some information for you guys. Hopefully that will give you, but I wanted to paint several different pictures, right? One of them is obviously geographical constraints, global shipping container crisis that we are seeing. Globally, it's gone up almost 3-4%. Price from China to West Coast, it's gone up almost five times the container prices in only 1 year. Now it is normalizing slightly, especially coming out of China, but we don't know if the pandemic in China has come to an inflection point yet. There's still talk of more closures, and there is not I would say, a clear roadmap of when everything will be opening up. But you can see that only within 12 months, things have gone up 4 or 5 times more. And this also is reflecting in raw material too. When you come down to a report that McKinsey put together for consumer priorities, they have asked consumers, what is the reason? And I would really want sales organizations, sales teams on this call to listen in. The availability and convenience, which actually make up the tenets of fulfillment operations for a company, together they are the top two reasons for a consumer to change to a different brand, abandon the brand they've been using for a very long time to try a new brand. Obviously, your new startup brands will eat your cake if you don't have your stocks, if you don't have your shelves full, if you don't have the right stock in place, and if your products are not conveniently located close to the consumption location. On to the right side, e-commerce category growth in only 2 years, and as you can see, all of these massive differences have happened in only 2 years. Now we also have 2022 data coming in, but all these massive shifts have happened in the last 2 years. Furniture, we started buying furniture, it's gone up 200%. Furniture, building materials, electronics, these are the things that we would normally go to the shop for hours, go home, come back again. Now we're doing it in e-commerce. Food and beverage, massive shift. Obviously, the big percentages is because we haven't really, we never really did e-commerce on those. We normally bought clothing. We normally got accessories or miscellaneous other gifts. But now you can see that the massive e-commerce push. And this is speeding up our supply chain delivery. More e-commerce happening in these categories, the faster we have, and more agile we have to be in our supply chains and logistics. It is a very different supply chain management and operating model for an e-commerce outlet to a big box retailer like your Walmarts and Kohl's, to a mom and pop shop in your strip malls in the US or Europe. These are very different. You need to have different lines within your logistics warehousing. So you really have to be understanding what is happening at the forefront of, or at the end of your supply chain when is it coming to the consumer, and then work your way back, constructing an optimized supply chain. So hopefully that's I was able to sort of create a call to action. So now let's look at from 3 different angles of how, what can we do to maybe build some resilience, and what we're seeing happening in the industry. Geographical optimization is obviously in everyone's mind. The container, clogged up ports, not being able to get the ship ships and containers on time. Rising cost is pushing people to think of, should I be moving out of my core country? Should I be switching factories? Should I be doing some nearshoring or offshoring? I want to point something out here, quite important. Globalization relied on positive foreign relations, market stability, and the resilience of global transportation systems. So as our world becomes more volatile, these extended supply chains are becoming massive challenges. So foreign relations, not that great. Market stability, it's all over the place. And the resilience of global transportation systems, we're swimming into the shores of collapse. Today is an important day. It's May 12th. West Coast Union for longshore seamen, longshore teams that actually manage the container ports are going through a negotiation phase, and that may take months, which is also a risk for West Coast ports. So you might say, okay, what about nearshoring? What about sort of like leaving China? A lot of people have talked about leaving China. If you look at the numbers, as people were talking about leaving China, actually last year, China's trade surplus, that is export versus import, the trade surplus actually was the highest ever since they started keeping the records. So while we're going through this pandemic, China had actually shattering all the records. So China is still there, and China has a network effect. Network effect is the concept of a value that is created by a platform, by a stakeholder, by a player, when so many other customers or consumers or stakeholders have actually gone on to use that value. So the more users have joined and enjoyed the value that China brings, the better costs and the better capacities China will have been able to offer. So the network effect of China, it cannot be discounted. It's not easy to switch countries and switch factories, even within the same country. Let's say you have a shoe factory in Vietnam, moving to a different factory. It will take close to 6 months to 1 year to get to the productivity levels that you enjoyed previously. So, everyone, we have to be careful about when we talk about nearshoring and offshoring, and it just has to be a predictable moves. Some blocks that are close to one another, like America and Canada, are getting closer and thinking about nearshoring. Not every product, but some of the more rationalized products to be able to shorten the distances and eliminate the need for sea freight and air freight. EU and North Africa are also kind of tying their logistics routes and looking at outsourcing opportunities, again, to shorten distances. Asia is still, I would say, a volatile region, but you have, again, the China effect that is mostly feeding the world and Asia still. Order optimization. The ideal turnover rate for consumer products is 5 to 10 annually. That means every 2 to 3 months, you should be bringing new products, or you should be replenishing, or you should be actually running out of product to replenish it with new ones. Some of the clothing companies are actually less than 1, meaning that they barely turn 1 full inventory within 1 year. And sitting on inventory is not quite ideal, especially if you're not managing it well. And the orders are changing. What this is saying is consumers have sped up their purchasing. Not maybe their spending, but their purchasing frequency. They want trendier things. They want goods to come to the market quicker. They want to, I want it now. I've got to have it now. They see it and they want to buy it. So what sourcing organizations can do, whether you use a sourcing agent or a factory's maybe sourcing team, or your own company sourcing or procurement teams, you should be, or you should have the capability with these teams to rely on them for innovation and data-driven decision making, where to source, what mode of logistics to look at, and even some design elements. Look at the product engineering. If you have an expensive raw material that is also going to take you a long lead time, can you change it? Let's not stick to something that is at 2 months into our market commercialization and reduce our speed to market, but let's have a two-way communication with all the transparency. Network and sales operation, we're going from just in time to just in case. We have squeezed quite a bit our supply chains, and now we're, because of so many things happening globally, and we are also getting the information very fast, we have to think about just in case supply chain. Where do we have our inventory? Do we have the right logistics modes in place? So as Michael said before, logistics has been quite stagnant and benign for the last few decades. You know, things just magically work out. Not really shining a light on the heroes in the back behind the scenes, but it really gained importance, especially when there was this panic frenzy buying during the height of the pandemic, start of the pandemic, even after the pandemic, and the shelves were empty. Then they asked the question, okay, why are factories not churning more products? And then you look at factories, and they were actually full capacity. They couldn't make enough face masks. They couldn't make enough toilet paper. So obviously there was a bottleneck, and in between you had container shortage problem. Air freight went up 3 or 4 times. So did the sea freight. And we realized that everyone realized that there are so many moving parts in a single node, and a single node of failure, which is the ports. When you look at ports in the West Coast, you have 4 or 5 different teams on organizations actually working within the same port. You have a different team that's doing the cranes, that you have a different team that is doing the paperwork. Just imagine the potential bottlenecks these teams may be incurring as they are trying to get a shipment, board it up, unload thousands of containers, push them through the customs, do the paperwork, then wait for a truck driver to come and pick it up. Right, so that's on the logistics side. From the sales operation side, again, I don't like to separate sales from logistics. I think we are coming to an inflection point where they have to be together. One of the companies that I used to work for actually called it customer sales and logistics, because logistics is so integrated into the sales operation. They make or break sales organizations, KPIs, metrics, and on-time delivery and fulfillment rates, that they actually have to be fairly together. So your S&OP planning, sales and operation planning meeting is very crucial. Planning, understanding where your risks are, where your risks will be, and communicating that, and taking the right necessary actions. And in the downstream processes, at the downstream value chain, is extremely important. Perhaps you can do some demand shaping, and demand shaping is around product rationalization. If you have 100 products, and if you are seeing raw material shortage for the 20–30% of it, you know, make some changes. What you offer to the customer, right? That's okay, because customer wants to buy. Again, the speed and the frequency has gone up. As long as you bring new ones and fast, you have a good chance of filling up those shelves and have a faster, quick inventory turnover. And you know, one thing that is really coming down the pipeline, if it hasn't come already, but sustainability will be hitting. Well, sustainability will be dictating certain things in the shipping industry as well. International Maritime Organization will be coming up with new guidelines for 2023, and there's going to be a lot of sustainability elements to it, from carbon emissions to electricity, and also recycling. So more to come on that, but you have to communicate these sustainability actions within your entire value chain. Quick one, and I don't want to run out of time, but quick on the digitization. It's a massive one. Digitization comes in 2 forms, and that's very important. We shouldn't, you know, mix the two. One of them is vendor collaboration, not overlapping the work that you do and the work that your vendor does. The work that your shipping company, that your trucking company does, and the work your dispatchers do internally. A study by a tools group has actually said the companies that collaborate with their vendors actually enjoy 200% more, 2 times more EBIT percentage than the ones that don't. And that's actually quite self-explanatory. EBIT is more around operational efficiencies and productivity. And when you are collaborating with your vendor, you are actually enjoying productivity because you're not incurring your own labor costs. You're leaving some of the work to them. It's not easy. You have to be fully aligned in your processes. Digitally, you should be able to, you should be well collected and integrated. And at some part, you probably need to do some shared demand planning as well. Share your operation where you're at it, and some of that can come from your sales and operating planning meetings. Sharing that with your vendors. Payment terms, I know this is a sore topic for many, but in these unprecedented times where there's so much fluctuation in the global supply chains, payment terms and easing off of the payment terms, or finding a credit union that specializes in certain product groups or certain maybe parts of even supply chain could help create a good vendor base for you. Strategic vendor management is key to long-term stability and agility of your supply chains. On the end-to-end visibility that is brought by different digital tools, I've listed a couple. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you have some for procurement, some for manufacturing, logistics, and on top of everything, you can have a control tower, a command center that use machine learning and AI to anticipate some of the macro and micro disruptions for you. And for the last year and a half, when they looked at the search, in the survey, 42% of organizations actually said the pandemic accelerated their digitization plans. And within all of these tools, make sure that you are actually creating an insight-driven and process-based management style, right? So we're talking about looking at the data that's coming to you. I love working with category managers because they're so, I did that for textiles. I did that for when I was purchasing food from Europe. I loved speaking to them because I learned so much of what's happening, spot prices, how the crops are, global warming is impacting, maybe creating some food shortage in the near future. It's very important to work with these knowledge teams and really understand the trend and watch for your both in-company operations and macro environment. So to bring things to a rapid close and get some questions from you guys, how to create a resilient supply chain. It is not a one-size-fits-all. I get that. It is not a project. It's not an initiative. It's a journey. It's a journey that is unfortunately never ending because there's always going to be some disruptions. Hopefully disruptions that don't harm lives, that don't end up in loss of life or casualties. But in the global supply chains, whether it's the people shortage, whether it's the truck shortage, container shortage, or different closures, or hitting a certain amount of capacity and creating these choke points in the global supply chains, it will happen. So couple of steps of how you can alleviate some of that is vendor collaboration, leverage relationships, learn one another, create risk mitigation plans together. It's very important. It's not a side project by any means. You really need to have a good system and good team to manage strategic vendor relationships. Look at alternative modes. Yes, we try to avoid air shipments, but the container prices have actually almost come to the air shipment. Yes, you can perhaps send less with an air shipment, even if you pay the same amount with the increased container cost, but it may be your high value items, and those costs, the sales, the loss of sales from some of your, maybe let's say 20% of your SKUs or products may actually well worth to send by air shipments or premium shipments and win those sales at the back end. Smart buffer stock, optimize your buffer stock. You can use your vendors, suppliers. You can have some work in progress, semi-finished goods in the factories. You can have some near your stores. You can have some with buffer stock within your warehouses. But it is about optimizing. If you don't optimize it through digital tools, through command centers and good forecasting, you will end up in a bullwhip effect. So be very careful of having an optimized buffer stock in different parts of the supply chain, so that you don't run out of product and empty shelves. Invest in digital, but not for the sake of having digital, and go on and talk about how cool your newest dashboard is that no one may be using it. First, get your processes right, get your people in place, map out all the processes. I've just completed a workshop where we brought in subject matter expert. We mapped out everything. It's painful, but it is a necessary evil. I suggest everyone to really understand the process first, and then put the digital on top of it. Then you will have a more seamless resolution of your issues and problems, and also the rollout. And relentlessly try to improve your forecast. Think of a multi-echelon approach. Multi-echelon means that you're looking at different stock points where you can create your stock, different SKUs in different locations, in different warehouses if need be, and have one cohesive planning. And that is it. It was a bit maybe fast, but you'll have the slides. You can look at it. So I will stop sharing, Michael, and maybe give it to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Cem, for this insightful and inspiring presentation, and taking us on this journey for the magic world of logistics. We have meanwhile, I mean, you've covered the area very precisely, and that does not leave room to much questions, but we have some. I would like to ask you the third question, which is coming from the floor, is a question about firms' knowledge of their own supply chain. How do firms gain good knowledge of first, second, and even third-tier suppliers?
First, okay, so the question is, how do you get knowledge on your first, second-tier suppliers, right?
How do you get the knowledge of those guys, right?
Right. I think vendor onboarding, I think everything starts from vendor onboarding. You need to have a very good, solid vendor onboarding process with the right people in place, with the right processes in place, tracking them. You need to have your red lines of the certifications that you require, the paperwork that you require that abides by the local rules and regulations, and also where your operations are. So it starts from the get-go. Really starts from when you are actually onboarding the suppliers. Hidden suppliers, contractors, it's always a difficult issue. It's always hard to see these invisible vendors that may not. But other than that, routine visits, field visits. A couple of the companies that I worked for, we had very good supplier checkers that went in, and they didn't just onboard the suppliers, but they also gave ideas to these suppliers. You can have a diagnosis on the maturity of your suppliers. Then you can have an assessment. You can have a quarterly, biannual, or annual assessment that when a person can go and do it. And also, if you say that, no, I don't have this many people, I don't have this kind of big workforce, then maybe it's time to rationalize your supplier base. Maybe you don't need that many suppliers. And so in this environment where you have to be agile, where you have to be quick, be able to create quick channels of supply chain that are integrated with these suppliers, you shouldn't be looking at too many suppliers to manage, because it has become unnecessary to have too many suppliers on your system, because it just takes too much to manage.
Well, something which we hear very often from our companies here in Germany, a question which is maybe on one hand easy to answer, but at the second time not really easy. It's how to mitigate international sourcing risks.
I would say geopolitical optimized sourcing, but it's easier said than done. I think nearshoring to some extent is the key. We are seeing it. Obviously, it's for different industries. It's different. When you look at the fashion industry, when you look at the textile, it's quite different than it is with the chips industry, right? So Samsung, I don't know if you guys have seen the news, but Samsung just broke ground for a $17 billion wafer, a chip making facility in Texas. It's big. Basically, during all this chip shortage, what these guys are saying is Samsung and US government is saying that we are nearshoring something that is a massive bottleneck at the moment globally. For me, it's probably not just going to be for US only. It'll be for Canada and Mexico, Latin America, to send these chips. So that's one way. But if you don't have $17 billion to spare, look at some nearshoring partners within your vicinity. Scout nearby countries. Bring some of some of your key, maybe more challenging, maybe more design focus or design heavy products into nearshoring. But other than that, if you rely too much on sea freight, container shipments, you can still mitigate your risk by investing earlier, right? 6 months before, 1 year before, invest, pay for that capacity. Maersk, your carry logistics, they'll love it. They'll love you for it, right? If you commit to using certain amount of it. So that's unfortunately global supply chains nowadays in logistics. It's being dictated by these different choke points, and that's your capacity at your ports, capacity in your sea freight and air freight. Even roads now, right? Obviously, you cannot move anything from Russia and Ukraine at the moment. So Europe is also suffering from transportation and road shipments. So that's what I can recommend.
All right. Yeah. We got another question from the floor regarding digital transformation. What is the most challenging aspect to this change, and which quick wins do you see?
People. It's definitely people, because they're the ones that are going to eventually use this technology. Whether it's your operator in a warehouse, operator on the ground, or your manager in your control tower, or your sales and operation planning director. At the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's a quick answer, but it really is. So what I normally try to do is, when I'm doing any kind of transformation, it's not just digital, it's process-based as well. You have to show them what's in it for them. Otherwise, it becomes quite hard, because when you let's take automation in the warehouse, for example. Chances are you're not going to know, as a manager or as a director, chances are it's quite slim that you know ins and outs of receiving, putting away, packaging it, and shipping an iPhone charger or headphones in an e-commerce logistics. The ins and outs will be well versed by the person that's working, right? So if you are introducing automation, if you're introducing digitization to that person or to the environment, you have to show what's in it for them. Maybe it's gonna help them ergonomically. Sometimes this can be hard, because there are digital transformations that is better for the greater good, right? Enterprise-wide, you need to have it. You need to have that visibility. You need to have that system. And you may have some reservations in the lower levels of the organization. Then what you can do is create champions, digital or transformation champions at these levels, that where the work is actually being done. Create champions, tie their bonus structure to these changes, right? How well they use it, and how well they help out with these transformations. So because you can have the money and you can have the best, you can buy the best software off the shelf. You can hire hundreds of coders. There's also many of them. You can hire hundreds of coders, keep them with high wages, have them write the codes. It's fine. But at the end of the day, someone will use it. You'll use that technology, and they will make a decision that will impact your operation and eventually financials. So what's in it for them? Explain them. Get their opinion during the implementation and rollout. Understand, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Have a bit of a fit gap analysis. Look at the gap. When you show them that you actually care about their ideas, and you should, they will warm up to the changes. In the more of an enterprise level, tie compensation structures to these changes and how well they use it. And work with the HR. I always recommend people to work with HR in these big changes, because they have many tricks up their sleeve to facilitate growth and transformation.
Mm-hmm. Maybe something which is a little bit out of the line now, but what do you think about crypto payments in international trade when it comes to sourcing?
Today's a tough day to ask. It can be a controversial topic. I'm already arguing with my friends on WhatsApp messaging. So I'm not going to do any controversial give ideas, but I do like the technology behind all of this. Not the currency, but the blockchain technology. I like it. I think there's at the end of the day, there is automation that is happening, right? There's like a payment automation. There's an operational automation that's happening in the background. So I really like the technology. I think as supply chain professionals, as a supply chain professional, I'm excited what that technology can do. So for me, if we're going to do something about it, if supply chain will use the blockchain technology, I'm not going to go into cryptocurrency because it's unstable. As you can see, things are dropping in value by 10-15%. When you are working across geographies, when you're working across continents with people that you have never seen, would you pay with I dare to say the names, would you pay with a cryptocurrency that might lose value tomorrow or gain value tomorrow? I'm not really seeing it likely. So there's a lot of instability, even more instability in our supply chain world. So payment with that. But the blockchain technology, where you use smart contracts, and Ethereum, ETH, was actually built for smart contracts. I'm not advocating for any kind of currency, but the smart contracts where you actually, for example, as a freight forwarder or as a shipping company, you get paid as soon as someone scans the goods into the customer warehouse, you immediately get paid. And then you can also you can literally embed your contractual agreements, your service level agreement, SLAs, into blockchain. And that blockchain will run in the background. And when certain things happen along the supply chain, people will get paid. And that's, I used to buy fresh goods, cheese from Netherlands, Holland, and olive oil from Spain, and bacon from Italy, right? And they have short shelf lives, not olive oil, but the others have short shelf life, and they spent 1 month in sea freight, right? So it immediately wipes out 1 month from my shelf life. On top of that, you need to make sure that refrigeration runs in those containers. If it doesn't, mold can start. But there is active bacteria that is already frozen. That might start building up between 0 and 4 degrees. So who is checking continuously that? And who is tying that to the service level agreement that I agreed with a shipping company? I don't have any visibility to check. Now it's becoming with telemetry devices. You put the telemetry device in it, and then there's IoT, Internet of Things that connect to it, and that'll give you some performance levels and also make or break your contract. So I think that's where, if it happens, that's what's going to happen. Blockchain with smart contracts. I'm excited about it, but I think in supply chain, everyone is waiting for someone to be the trailblazer, and then people will follow along.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you very much, Cem. I'm looking at the clock, and I can see we already spent a little bit more time, but this is no wonder, because this is a highly interesting topic. and you have covered so many areas, and I'm sure you gave good account on opportunities, how to mitigate the problems, and how to build up a resilient supply chain, which is something that is haunting all the companies worldwide now. Nobody was expecting that it became so drastic over the past 2 years, and we are all facing the problems. Also, here in Germany, we see the shelves sometimes are empty, and people start purchasing toilet paper by thousands of rolls, and anything has to do with logistics. And I think now logistics is really coming into our sight, and we see how important it is. And so I think it's very helpful that you were sharing all your experience you made in the past as an expert, and also the hints you gave and the ways you showed us how companies could target the problems and try to get a fresh way and a fresh view on the subject. Cem, thank you very much indeed for sharing all these information with us, for the time you spent with us. I thank very much our audience who was patiently listening with us. Please stay tuned. Next webinar is certainly coming up. HKTDC is always a good partner for good information. For you guys in Asia, I wish you a wonderful evening. For the colleagues here in Germany, have a good working day, and please keep everything in mind Cem was telling us, so we should be on the safe side. Thanks a lot again. You have a good time, and see you hopefully soon.